big Friday college fantasy football, the Blitz College Fantasy Football Show with John Laub, the scholar, and myself, Emil Kadlec. John, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Week 6 kicked off last night, and I was watching Tulane and Houston. Houston clobbered them in the second half. I was also obviously watching Tampa Bay and Chicago, so I try to watch both games. I do actually watch both games. Tonight, right now, as we speak, Louisville is up 14-7 over Georgia Tech. So I've already am having a great time with college football, and we have a huge slate tomorrow, Emil, that we're here to help our viewers through.
Fantastic. All right, let me find the first slide. Let's hope if I can do that right today. There you are, sir.
So, Emil, everyone knows we begin with the Scholars' Marvelous Matchups. And we have the big Red River rivalry tomorrow. It's actually the only game in which Vegas projects for over 70. Charlotte, North Texas is 69.5. So it's itching up there. In this game, the two quarterbacks, they are gold. Spencer Rattler and Sam Ehlinger. They have been producing college fantasy points in bunches. One of the challenges is neither team has a terrific running back. They kind of use running back by committee. You have Seth McGowan in Oklahoma and TJ Pledger. Don't love either one, but if you're desperate in a flex, you can go there for either player. In Texas, you have Keontae Ingram, Roshan Johnson, who's probable, and Bijan Robinson. All three of them get carries. It's really a dreaded three-man running back rotation. So I don't like any of those plays either unless you're desperate in a flex position. At wide receiver, the Longhorns are loaded. Joshua Moore is the home run threat. He's probable. Get him into your lineup as long as we know he's going to play, and it looks like he will. Jake Smith, Brennan Eagles are definitely worth starting. So there are players on the Texas Longhorns at wide receiver you want to get into your lineup. No question about it. Oklahoma, Charleston Rambo, Marvin Mims, and Theo Weiss. Those are, in general, the guys that you want to get into your lineups. I'm pretty comfortable starting any of them. Rambo's the stud here. He's not as good as C.D. Lamb was last year, but he's definitely worth having in your lineups every week. I like Marvin Mims, but he's a freshman, so he's been a little up and down so far this year. At tight end, Oklahoma has Austin Stronger. He's okay to have. If you're desperate at tight end, you can put him into your lineup. So I like those plays. This is the game. I can't wait. It is at noon tomorrow. It is going to be a classic. It always is when Oklahoma plays Texas in the Red River rivalry. Then we go to Charlotte versus North Texas. And most people aren't going to look in the Conference USA, but this is the number 2 game on the board. Plus, it is close. North Texas, the home team, is getting 3 points. So Vegas is telling us that Charlotte should win this game. You're looking on the Charlotte side. They have a 3-headed monster. You want to play all of these players. Chris Reynolds, their quarterback, has been very good this year. Trey Harbison, the transfer student from University of Northern Illinois, put him into your lineup at running back. North Texas is terrible defensively against the run. And then their wide receiver, the 49ers, have Victor Tucker. He's a PPR machine. He's very likely to get 10 or 11 targets. He'll have 7 or 9 catches in this game. He probably won't go for like 120, but he can easily go 8 catches for 95 yards and a touchdown. Like him very much on this. Now, you go to the opposite side, North Texas. If they would just choose a quarterback. They play Austin Ain and Jason Bean. It looks like Austin Ain should be the starter. But I'm not sure if I want to play these two quarterbacks. A, they rotate them. B, they've been injured, and they haven't completed the game. So there's risk there. But if you're desperate, you're talking about the second highest over-under. So you could put these two players in. Now, Oscar Attaway, the running back at North Texas. I got burned by him last week. With about 30 minutes left to kick off, they announced he was out. I did not have a player to replace, so I had to take the bagel. But this right now, it looks like he's out, so you don't have to worry about it. DeAndre Torrey or Trey Seegers, those two running backs, if you're desperate, you can grab one of them. The wide receiver you want for the North Texas Eagles is Jalen Darden. Get him into your lineup. There's lots of players here. You can look on your depth charts, but we have a great over-under of 69.5. Then we go back to the Big 12. Oh, this game, Texas Tech at Iowa State. Iowa State's a huge favorite here, 12.5 points, which tells us that Vegas believes that Iowa State is going to be able to run the football. And we're going to talk about their great running back in a minute, everyone. Brock Purdy, the quarterback at Iowa State, has not been great. He's been a little bit disappointing, but if you need him and you're playing in a 2-quarterback league, I feel okay playing Purdy as your number 2 quarterback at home here. Now, the receiver that has come on for Iowa State is Xavier Hutchinson. Not in love with him, but if you need a wide receiver this week, I can put Xavier Hutchinson into my lineups. And their tight end, who is in the top 6 in August when we're ranking tight ends, is Charlie Kohler. Now, he's not lived up to the billing yet, but he's been injured. I like him very much, so you can put Charlie Kohler into your lineups, folks. And on Texas Tech, oh, man, last week did I get burned here. Their quarterback, Alan Bowman, went out in the first quarter.
Oh,
I had him in my DFS lineups. He missed the game. I think I got like 0.7 points. It's the worst scenario. I think he went out on the second drive of the game.
oh,
Hey, it is what it is in DFS. You have to live with the results of your decisions. They put in Henry Colomby. Henry Colomby had a nice game. Let me see what he did here for stats last week. He had 244 yards and 2 touchdowns in relief for Texas Tech. So if you are desperate, it looks like Colomby is going to play. But Bowman is questionable. We're going to have to watch it in the morning. Cedric Thompson, their running back, is a star in the making. But he got hurt last week also. And Xavier White came off the bench, and he had a great day. But it looks like Cedric Thompson's going to play, so I would hold off on playing Xavier White. But we know White can produce if given the chance down the road. Wide receiver, the Red Raiders are loaded. Eric Ezukama, TJ Fasser, and Keyshawn Carter. All of them, they're about equal. They each get about 28 to 30% of the target share of the Red Raiders passing game. I feel comfortable with putting either of those 3 receivers into my lineups this week. And tomorrow night, Emil, we have the game of the week. My undefeated Miami Hurricanes playing great football. They go into Death Valley to take on Clemson, the number 1 team in the nation. Clemson is a huge favorite at plus or minus 14. There are so many first-round draft picks in this game. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence should be the number 1 pick in the draft. He's the guy you want to be watching. And their running back, Travis Etienne, absolutely love him. He could easily be the number 1 ranked player at the position by the end of the campaign. Now, this is the first time in a while Clemson doesn't have a cadre of wide receivers who look like NFL prospects. They have some youngsters who are sophomores who look like they could be. But their senior right now is Amari Robinson. He's a good player. He'll probably be like a 3rd-round pick in the NFL. We're going to talk about Miami in detail later. But Miami is loaded also. Can't wait to see this game, Emil. And then very quietly, we have North Carolina State at Virginia. This other ACC matchup has a 59.5 over-under. Virginia is an 8-point favorite at home. It's actually, I think it went down to 7. The line is coming down a little bit from when I made the slide last night. But The Wolfpack have a young quarterback, sophomore, Devin Leary. We're going to talk about him. And they have weapons at wide receiver, and they have a great backfield. They employ two very good running backs. They have in the backfield there at North Carolina State. They have Zonovan. I want to make sure I get the name right. Where is it here? Okay. They have Zonovan Knight and Ricky Pearson. Both of those running backs are solid. They'll give Virginia problems. It's interesting because Virginia also has a very young quarterback, Brennan Armstrong, a dual threat quarterback. He's also young, replacing Bryce Perkins from last year. Lots of fantasy goodness in North Carolina State and Virginia, everyone.
Fantastic. All right, on to the next slide.
Tomorrow night, under the microscope, all day. Obviously, there are going to be so many players that I am going to be watching, but I'm going to be focusing my attention on two that I'm very excited. I already spoke a little bit about this Iowa State game. The player that you want to watch, everyone, is Zach Hall. He is their guy, and boy, has he been playing so well this year. He's actually exceeding expectations. He's 6'1", 205-pound sophomore. Last year, he was a first-team freshman All-American. He didn't start until the 7th game of the season, but he ended up with 897 yards rushing, 252 yards receiving, 23 receptions, and 10 touchdowns. Breece Hall is a very underrated pass catcher on the Cyclones. And this year, Emil, he has opened this season with a bang. 3 straight 100-yard games. 103, 154, and 139 yards rushing. He is the Iowa State Cyclones offense. He has 396 yards rushing, and he has 6 touchdowns. They have not been using him as much in the passing game. He has 5 receptions for 28 yards, but we know it's in his resource and in his bank. He can definitely catch the football. Breece Hall, we've got to watch him tomorrow against Texas Tech in this big game. Check him out, everyone. I think he's a better prospect than David Montgomery, and we saw David Montgomery last night with the Chicago Bears. I believe that Breece Hall is a better player and better prospect than Montgomery. I'm looking forward to watching him play tomorrow. And probably the fastest early riser of this season, Emil, is Zach Wilson of BYU. He has really skyrocketed up draft boards. He's been starting for BYU basically since he was a freshman. And Emil, you and I are old enough to remember when BYU had Jim McMahon, Steve Young, Ty Detmer, Robbie Bosco. They won a national championship. Ty Detmer had the Heisman Trophy. Hey, we have Tyson Hill of the New Orleans Saints played at BYU. Zach Wilson is their best quarterback in a while, everyone. And this year, he's a junior. And it's been fascinating because BYU is an independent school. So they had a kind of scramble at the beginning of the year when some of the programs were delayed or postponed. They don't have a conference affiliation. So they were able to put together a schedule. And BYU's had a couple standalone games where they were the only game on television. So I've been able to watch a lot of BYU. And Zach Hall deserves to move up draft boards. He's getting NFL attention. He's 6'1", 210 pounds, a little bit undersized, but hey, we've seen Russell Wilson, we've seen Drew Brees. We've seen Kyler Murray. Not too worried about the size. He just doesn't have that Trevor Lawrence, oh my God, just, the perfect prototype of your quarterback. But Zach Hall can sling it. Against Navy, 232 yards. Against Troy, 392 yards. Louisiana Tech, 325 yards. He's thrown 6 touchdown passes already this year. But what I like about him, he's underrated with his legs. He's not in the Russell Wilson class, but he is mobile enough to buy time in the pocket, and he's good around the goal line. He has an innate sense to get the ball over the finish line. Last week, he scored 3 rushing touchdowns against the Bulldogs, and against the Trojans, he scored 2. So Zach Wilson is skyrocketing up. I've been watching him. He impressed me against Navy. I wrote about him early in the season. He's one of these young men. Hey, remember, Joe Burrow was not on anyone's radar last August, and even this year. I'm not saying Zach Wilson is Joe Burrow, but he's moving up draft boards. You got to watch him. He's my under the microscope tomorrow at quarterback.
And when you at a quarterback position can score 2 and 3 touchdowns a game, that's just frosting on the cake for your fantasy score.
Absolutely. And Emil, we see it now in the NFL. You know, it's interesting because you and I love the NFL so much, but I've been playing college football for so long. And for over a decade, we've sought these dual threat quarterbacks in college fantasy football. But guess what? Deshaun Watson, Cam Newton, Russell Wilson to an extent, Patrick Mahomes. If you can't run, you look at the leaders in NFL fantasy football, and they're almost all dual threats. We've seen the evolution. The NFL was behind. You know, we had the Phillip Rivers, the Eli Mannings, you know, the Ben Roethlisberger, the statues. But the last 10 years, college football,
I think the NFL was scared of it. I think they were scared of getting hurt. They don't want their quarterback hurt. But it's evolved, and it helps you win. I mean, look at Josh Allen, too. He had 9 touchdowns.
Yeah, I forgot. You're right. Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we see this now coming in from the college level. And Zach Wilson, if you watch him in the pocket, he manipulates the pocket. He has escapability, and he can get in near the goal line. So he's a very fascinating prospect.
By the way, before we get to the next slide, when you talked about BYU won the national championship, it was in the 80s. And I remember when that happened, and the NCAA then changed the whole process shortly after that. They couldn't stand seeing a minor conference, which I think was the WAC at the time, which is the one that UNM's involved in where I live. They completely changed it to the BCS, so all those minor conferences could not be in the championship game.
Yeah, and you remember in those days, they did change it. And remember, in those days, BYU, they went undefeated. They didn't even play on New Year's Day. They played Michigan. Yeah, well, I'm a Michigan fan, so I remember this game. Yeah. Michigan had a bad team, and I remember BYU was undefeated, so I watched the game. And Michigan lost, and it was like maybe the day before Christmas or the day after Christmas. So the NCAA was so upset because they had an undefeated team at the top of the rankings who was not even going to play on New Year's Day, and BYU finished undefeated. And that Michigan team, I think they were like 7-6 or 6-6. Yeah, so that's why. But it was Michigan, so they got into the bowl game, and BYU beat them, and then the NCAA changed the rules, like you said. And it was the old WAC. That conference doesn't even exist, but it was the WAC.
You need a history book to figure out how the evolution of all. But just real quick, it always annoyed me because for years after the BSC or BCS opened up, everybody was saying, well, you know, those minor conferences, they've got to show better. And Boise State would be 11-0, and they would be 4th, and they kept saying, well, they just didn't win. They were never going to make it. You know what the NCAA did? They took Division I and they split it into Division 1A and Division 1B, and they didn't even have to explain it because they created this 6-conference stuff, which means none of the other ones were ever going to make the championship game, and they basically just split them, and then everybody kept saying, well, you haven't proven yourself. Well, after a couple years, who's going to go to Boise State? They're not going to be in the championship game. They're not going to make it on major TV anymore. So all the talent went to those 5 conferences. And then 5 years later, they're all getting drafted in the NFL. And they're going, see, those are great conferences. Well, yeah, they're great conferences, but you fixed it so the talent doesn't want to go to the other ones. Would you go if you were a major? You wouldn't go. You have no shot to be in the top conferences. Anyway, it just really annoyed me that it was so obvious to me what they did, yet nobody recognized it. Anyway, I'll get off that. Okay.
Emil, if you're a 5 or 4-star recruit, you're not likely to go to the group of 5. You're going to go to the Power 5.
Yeah.
That's what you're going to do.
And, before, you may go to one of those schools because they had a shot. And when BYU screwed it up for everybody, they won, and they couldn't handle it. I don't know if you remember, BYU, the basketball team, around the same time, finished in the Final Four. And at that point in basketball, only 3 teams could make the NCAA. They were the 3rd WAC team to make the NCAA and finished in the Final Four. And then they wiped that out, and now they're letting 8 or 9, and 1 gets from the Mountain West. They fix things because the NCAA isn't about collegiate athletics. It's about MULO, money, in my opinion. And, that's fine. Just admit it. Just admit it. It's about money. All right, I'm sorry. On to the next slide. Sorry.
No problem. Everyone knows who watches us. Our next slide is the Scholar CFF Sleepers for Week 6. Now, Emil, we only had 2 games canceled this week. We've had some delays because of Hurricane Delta in the Gulf Coast. The Alabama-Mississippi game was put back. It's a later kickoff now than it was originally scheduled for. But we look like everything's going pretty well, but you still might need some sleepers. First one I love this week, Devin Leary, the quarterback at North Carolina State. I mentioned that this is a very interesting game on the board, North Carolina State at Virginia. Virginia is bleeding points to opposing quarterbacks. They give up 307 passing yards a game and over 30 points a game. I like Devin Leary. He's on the road here, so there's a little bit of risk with a young quarterback on the road. But I think this has sneaky shootout potential. Virginia can score also. If you need a quarterback, grab Devin Leary, quarterback of North Carolina State, going to Virginia to play in a nice game that they should be throwing the football often in the 4th quarter. I have 2 running backs that you should be able to go and pick up on your waiver wire if you need them. The first one, freshman Sean Tucker, who the Syracuse Orange are hosting the Duke Blue Devils. Now, I remember the days of Syracuse. Jim Brown, Ernie Davis, Floyd Little, Larry Zonka, and Joe Morris. They had great running. Unfortunately, for a long time now, Syracuse has not provided college fantasy football fans with a lot of help in the backfield. But 2 weekends ago against Georgia Tech, Sean Tucker became the first Syracuse freshman to get 100 yards in a game since 2015. I like this matchup. Tucker's 5'10", 200 pounds. He can run between the tackles, and he can get on the edge. If you need a running back, go grab Sean Tucker versus Duke. The other game that I love, Liberty versus University of Louisiana at Monroe. University of Louisiana Monroe is one of the worst teams in the nation. Liberty is a 19.5-point favorite. This has blowout written all over it. Liberty might get 300 yards rushing because Liberty has a quarterback, Malik Willis, who is a better runner than thrower. But Joshua Mack is
Whoop, you've disappeared here. John has disappeared. Oh, he's back.
I'm here?
Yeah, you were just saying Joshua Mack, and then you blopped out for about 10 seconds.
All right. Joshua Mack has opened the season with 3 consecutive 100-yard days also. 100, 107, and 130. He is averaging 6.5 yards a carry for the Flame. Mack easily exceeds 100 yards rushing, definitely gets in the end zone once, maybe twice, against University of Louisiana Monroe. You need a running back, go get Joshua Mack of the Flame. Like him a ton. One of the wide receivers, I love looking through the database of targets and receptions, Emil. Jacob Cowan of UTEP is one of the most prolific wide receivers in the nation, and people have not even heard of him. First, he leads the nation in yards with 377. He is also the fourth most targeted receiver in the nation with 35 passes attempted his way. He is the second-ranked receiver with 48.7 points scored. He's 5'11", 170-pound sophomore. They're playing Louisiana Tech, and Louisiana Tech is so kind to opposing passing games. They are surrendering 331 yards a game and almost 38 points a game to opposing offenses. I like Jacob Cowan here. The Miners wide receiver has not gotten in the end zone yet, but we know those are fickle. I think he's going to score his first touchdown of the season against this very poor defense. And here's what's funny.
By the way, real quick, is Joshua Mack on the slate this week? Somebody asked a question on YouTube.
Not on the DFS slate, unfortunately.
Okay. Keep going, I'm sorry.
No problem. Louisiana Tech, they've surrendered in 3 games 4 receivers with over 100 yards, and all of them reached the end zone. Gunnar Romney, Jared Stearns, Ben Ratzliff, and Tim Jones. And they combined for 8 touchdowns, those 4 wide receivers against Louisiana Tech. Like Jacob Cowan of UTEP here a ton. If you want another wide receiver, Dahu Green of Arkansas State. Arkansas State has gotten off to a slow start. Unfortunately, they're having a challenge at the quarterback. They're rotating quarterbacks, Emil, which drives me mad. I don't think it's good for anyone, even in college football. And I think it's hurting their passing game. But it looks like Dahu Green is going to come back and play this week. They're hosting Central Arkansas and are expected to score almost 64 points. In 2 games, Dahu Green has had 10 receptions for 153 yards and a touchdown. You need a wide receiver tomorrow. Dahu Green of Arkansas State, the Red Wolves, he's your guy. Those are my 5 CFF sleepers to pick up.
Beautiful. All right. The next and final slide. Here we go.
All right. Now we're getting to the meat and the potatoes, the good stuff. The Fantastic Four for our afternoon slate. And our afternoon slate is absolutely loaded, my friends, with excellent talent. There's 12 games on the slate here, and I'm really excited. So what I've done is I've identified players who should give you room to invest in the Red River rivalry between Texas and Oklahoma. We know you're going to have to spend up for one of those 2 quarterbacks, Ellinger or Rattler, and you probably want to pair them with one of their top receivers. So I've got to find you salary savings at the other positions. First one, I'm going to go with my super flex, Bo Nix of the Auburn Tigers, or the quarterback. Now, Bo Nix can be maddening, but he is a dual threat quarterback. In the opening game, he scored 24.7 DraftKings points against Kentucky. But then they went on the road, Auburn, to play Georgia. And he got destroyed. He only had 6.8. So I think recency bias is going to keep college fantasy football owners off of Nix. But Auburn's home against Arkansas. Arkansas is nowhere near as good as Georgia, and Arkansas is going to be cocky coming off an upset win. I like the Tigers here, and I like Bo Nix, their dual threat quarterback, at 6,500. I'm going to invest in that BYU game. BYU is killing people, Emil. They have a top 5 defense, a top 5 offensive line, and a legitimate NFL prospect at quarterback. But they also can run the football behind that offensive line. I want to save money. I'm going to go Tyler Algier. He has scored 28, 9, and 16 DraftKings points. If he gets in the end zone, that's when you're going to get over 15 DraftKings points. The touches are there. They're a huge favorite. He's going to get the ball enough. It's just a question, does he get in the end zone? Then you're going to have a monster day. I like Tiger Algier here. One of my top Devy prospects is George Pickens of the University of Georgia. Unfortunately, Pickens has started the season slow, and I think people are going to be off of Pickens. The player who's been playing great is Kearis Jackson. He has scored 26 and 12 DraftKings points. Part of it is the matchups and the coverage. They dictated that the Bulldogs go away from Pickens. But Pickens has still scored double digits in back-to-back games. Pickens is the alpha dog in this offense. He's a star in the making. Emil, in the 2022 draft, he might be a top 5 pick in the NFL. He is a star. The breakout game has not happened. He is priced so low at 5,500. I absolutely love Pickens here. His first game of the year against Arkansas, he was 6,400. So he's dropped 900 points. Against Tennessee at home, I like Georgia to get the ball into George Pickens' hands. I'm going to go with him. And then I need a cost savings here. I'm going to go with Anthony Schwartz of Auburn. And I'm going to pair him with Bo Nix. Anthony Schwartz is only 4,100. But the two top receivers for Auburn might be out in this game. It is very unlikely that both of them are going to play. So Schwartz was peppered with targets last week, and he had 8 receptions for 57 yards. He should lead the team in targets again, and I think Auburn gives a beatdown to Arkansas after getting killed by Georgia. So that gives you some salary cap savings. That's my Fantastic Four, and then you can invest however you want in the Red River rivalry.
Wow, that's fantastic. May the Schwartz be with you. If you're a Spaceballs fan.
I am, my friend. What a great movie, huh?
It was. I saw it the other night. It's just corny and good for some strange reason.
Yeah.
Well, those are some good ones. I wish some of those other players you were saying were on the slate. I guess they're not.
Yeah, in general, DraftKings stays away from like those independent, smaller games. They'll throw 1 or 2 up there once in a while, but they don't have every game and team on the slate. No, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, those are some good ones. So,
yes.
That's a fantastic lineup. I apologize for my babbling earlier about the NCAA. I was glad to get it off my chest. And tomorrow night, which is Saturday night, if you're watching this on demand, we're going to have our DFS salary cap, which of course we also have. Excuse me, not salary cap. Cash games, and of course we have a little GPP on that, and that starts at 7 o'clock Eastern time Saturday night.
Yep.
And that's week 5 of the NFL, so that'll be fun. Any other thing
Absolutely.
You'd like to say?
Well, we have 2 more slides, my friend.
Oh, I don't show them.
Oh.
I missed the slides.
Oh.
I guess we should.
If you go, I can start talking.
Go ahead and chat. I'll see if I can't pull those up live.
Slide.
You're going to have to do it all by hands.
Go ahead. So we have a Fantastic Four for the evening slate. There's only 6 games in the evening slate. So for the Fantastic Four in the evening slate, last week I had said under the microscope, Kylan Hill of Mississippi State. Unfortunately, he got a little dinged up in the game, and Kylan Hill came out. And he's now underpriced. He's only 6,400. But he should play tomorrow against Kentucky on the road. I like Kylan Hill because he gets peppered with targets. The week before against LSU, he had 8 targets for 158 yards. Last week, I think he only played like a series or two. So, but the recency bias is going to have DFS players, I think, off of Kylan Hill. He's only 6,400. So Kylan Hill is going to be my first player in the Fantastic Four for the evening slate. Then UTEP and Louisiana Tech have a big game. We already talked about Jacob Cowing of UTEP. But on the Louisiana Tech side, I'm going to go their starting running back, Justin Henderson. Justin Henderson played BYU last week. There we go.
Bing bong.
Justin Henderson played BYU. Very tough game. As I mentioned, BYU plays great defense. Listen, UTEP cannot stop the run as well as BYU. Justin Henderson's underpriced at $6,000. Emil, in his first game of the year against Southern Mississippi, Justin Henderson was $8,100. That's how good he was last year. He was in my top 12 in college fantasy football before the season started. He's had a slow start, but I think the Bulldogs get the running game going. Justin Henderson tends to score touchdowns in bunches. I like Justin Henderson a ton tomorrow at home against UTEP. Now let's go to the big boys. Alabama is loaded at wide receiver, folks. They're loaded. But I want to save a little bit of money. When I have an offense that is as prolific as the Crimson Tide, I like to spend down. You can spend for Jalen Waddle, but he's $8,300. You can spend for John Mechie, but he's $5,900. I'm going to invest in Devonta Smith. Devonta Smith has scored 16 and 18 points in the first two games of the year. He's a third-price wide receiver in a huge over-under game in which Alabama's playing Mississippi. I think Alabama puts 45 points on the board easy. I'll take Devonta Smith to $5,700 for the price savings here. And I have one guy. There's risk here. But I'm a little bit of a risk taker. I like to find one underpriced player. C.J. Johnson of East Carolina. He was in the top 15 in my rankings in August at wide receiver. East Carolina has began the season pathetic. They're 0-2. They've been blown out in both games. But the best thing for a bad team is you go play South Florida. South Florida is also very bad. ECU gets the passing game going here. C.J. Johnson will have his best game of the season. Emil, he's only $3,900 for the low. Best wide receiver. Yeah, he's the alpha dog wide receiver who's been underperforming, not because of injury that we know of. There's no reports. It's just ECU has been playing very bad football. I think the Tigers get on track against South Florida here, and I'll take the upside at only $3,900 for C.J. Johnson.
That's a very intriguing one.
Very intriguing. He could easily score 20 to 25 points, Emil. So that's my Fantastic Four for the evening slate. Kylan Hill, Justin Henderson, Devonta Smith, and C.J. Johnson. And that gives you can invest in Miami, Clemson, you can invest in Mississippi or Bama, however you want with the other positions. But this gives you a nice, solid base in tomorrow's evening slate.
Fantastic. All right, off to the final slide, unless I missed another one.
Nope, you got it, my friend. And last week, Emil, I had my second 3-0 week of the year. I took SMU. They beat Memphis. I took TCU. They beat Texas. And I took Ole Miss. They beat Kentucky. They were all underdogs, so I was getting points. And all three teams won outright. So here I am now. I'm back. I'm 8-4 on the season. I'm feeling good about tomorrow's slate. I like these. These are the scholars' best bets for tomorrow. Emil, I look for a team that can exploit a weakness. The one thing that Bill Belichick does better on defense than anyone I've ever seen, and I've been watching Belichick since he was at the Giants in the late 80s, he can attack your weakness. Temple is going to exploit Navy's weakness. Navy can't stop the run. They're awful defending the run. Temple is unbelievable at running the football. Temple's going to run all over Navy, even on the road. I'm willing to give up the 3.5. I like the Owls to open up their season with the victory because they can exploit the midshipmen's weakness stopping the run. So Temple wins this one outright. I've been alluding to North Carolina at Virginia all night. The spread is now North Carolina State +7. Love the Wolfpack in here. They're going to go on the road into Virginia. Virginia's good, but I'm getting a touchdown. I'm getting a full touchdown with the Wolfpack. I'm going to take the North Carolina State Wolfpack +7 at Virginia. And tomorrow, my upset of the year. Miami's going to defeat Clemson. They're going to knock them off the pedestal. Miami has Derek King, transfer from Houston. They have Cameron Harris. They can run the football. They have an NFL-level tight end in Brevin Jordan. They are loaded on offense, and the defense is nasty. They hit more, and they're going to shock the world by upsetting Clemson. I have it outright, but I'll take the 15 points. I'm getting 15 points. Miami goes into Death Valley, and they upset Clemson. Give me that 15, baby.
That's a ton.
Ton of points, and they're going to win.
Woo. So you're 8-4 this year. That's excellent.
Yes, I had 2 undefeated weeks, and 1 week I was 0-3, but hey, you have to live, you're going to have some bad weeks in DFS and when you take some bets, but you have to look at the long term. How are you doing all season long? And I'm heading in the right direction, my friend.
Yeah, that's fantastic. These are some great ones. I got to get my lineup in. I missed it last week for college DFS, so I got to get it in late tonight because I get it in the morning. We do the Jen's prop till you drop, and we're going to do it like 9 Eastern time, which is 7 my time, and I'm gone after that. It was just too early for me. Fantastic show, John. It's really great stuff. I'm enjoying it.
Oh, thank you. I had a blast tonight. I hope our listeners liked it. I hope our watchers liked it. Any questions, Emil? Did anyone else send us any questions?
No, just that one guy. He was interested to see whether Mack or
Joshua
Green were in the slate, and I guess they both weren't in the slate. They got to get those guys in the slates.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to help with DFS and season long, so we're doing both.
We're mixing both, and I think that's great. I think it's great. We got to do both because there's some great players like that you can pick up on your rosters in season, and very important to bring those things up. Those are fantastic.
And when anyone who's watching us, whenever I identify a player, they're owned on less than 50% of Fantrax college teams. So some of them are as low as 13% owned. So if you do watch the show, you need someone, go to your waiver wire. There's a good chance a bunch of those players I recommend are available to you.
Fantastic. Anything else you'd like to say?
No, please join us tomorrow for our line of scrimmage, the DFS Cash Game Show. We have a great one coming for you tomorrow. Again, we had a really good week with the Contrarian GPP. We'll tell you tomorrow who's on tomorrow's slate for Contrarian GPP.
Fantastic, John. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.